Hi, I'm Alan Adcock. I'm the owner of ASC Group here in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to Cyber Sentinel. In this video, we're joined by Mark Maloney. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Venops. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thanks, Alan.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about Venops and what y'all do.
Well, Venops is a compliance company that our mission is to protect private practices, independent medical practices from big fines through maybe accidental transgressions or violations of compliance as it relates to federal regulatory rules like the OIG's rule for exclusion screening is a good example. And that's the tip of the spear for us.
Awesome. So here at ASC Group, we also get involved in some of that as well around the HIPAA rules. And so tell me a little bit, about the exclusion screening, because I'm not as familiar with that as I am with HIPAA itself.
Well, when we started Venops, we looked at compliance as a whole, and we looked at Health and Human Services. We looked specifically at the Federal Omnibus Act of '96, the HIPAA rules, and all of the privacy issues. And a lot of that was kind of a work in progress. But what struck us was that it was largely self-enforced. You know, this profession is very good at maintaining its own ethics and standards and enforcement. And so they were moving right along, but the penalty for a rule violation didn't seem to be very severe, and the enforcement didn't seem to be very severe. So we sort of kept looking beyond that until we came up with exclusion screening. And we've all been to the post office, perhaps more back in the day, and you would see the posters on the wall. And these were people that were most wanted by the FBI. Well, the Office of the Inspector General of Health and Human Services maintains a list of most wanted, and it's a list of several 100,000 people that have been engaged in fraudulent activities and indicted or convicted. And if you as a medical provider do business with one of these companies or individuals or doctors that's on that exclusion list, the fines can be up to $21,000 per encounter. So if I do business with a company and I see 10 patients and I prescribe that particular service or drug or whatever, or our doctor who's on the list sees that a Medicare patient 10 times, that's 10 times $21,000 that actually also can be tripled in the final fine. So the fines, my point is the fines are absolutely punitive. They're huge, and they're enforced by the Federal False Claims Act under the Social Security Act. So unlike HIPAA, you've got big fines with big long teeth for potential enforcement. Our surveys then indicated that the average medical practice didn't even know about it. Big practices that are lawyered up, that are well managed, and know how to manage their risk generally do a good job of exclusion screening, which is supposed to be done every month. But your average small to medium independent medical practice either doesn't know about it or doesn't have enough time in their busy, busy days to do it. So Venops is a company that is dedicated to protecting those practices from those unnecessary fines.
So for your typical smaller medical group, is it that the exclusion screening is just not accessible to them, or is it just technically too expensive to implement, so they don't do it?
Well, if you start with the premise that a majority of the time they don't even really know about the rule, and then you progress to the fact that it's a mandatory monthly service, and then you move even farther and realize that what they have to do is check every name of every company and every doctor and every employee against a list that changes every month, it actually becomes a big burden. And if you're a independent medical practice already under the burden of just doing business as a small business, as you and I are, plus the regulatory atmosphere of being a provider, of being a doctor or some kind of medical therapy, uh, this often just gets swept under the rug. Or if they want to do it, they're too busy to do it. And that led us to creating an automated exclusion software program that makes it really easy. And we even went so far as to create a basic service that is free.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about why did you create a free version of the service, and how does that differ from your paid version?
Well, if you're in the sort of if you're an entrepreneur like I am, and you've been engaged in selling products to medical practices for a long time, if you come up with a new product and a new idea that costs a certain amount of money, and you go to the large practices that make a lot of money, they can then make a good business decision whether or not they want to do it. But those small to medium-sized practices, very often, they're just a small business like you and me, and they're really still concerned about things like making payroll, benefits, and things like that for their employees. But most of all, delivering quality patient care at the same rate as the big practices do. So I just made a decision that the small to medium-sized practices would probably just put this off forever or until they got caught, and then it was too late. Insurance is that one of those things that you don't need it till you need it. And how many people would buy, like, for example, car insurance if it wasn't the law? A certain percentage of people would probably just let it go. So we decided, in the interest of the profession, to help raise that bar by making it free. Now, we do have a premium service, and as they grow and maybe have a higher need, they can move to a premium service that does cost money.
Well, that's fantastic, Mark, for getting those smaller doctors' practices into the exclusion screening process and getting used to doing that to hopefully avoid those fines. It's a great offering. How have you seen this COVID-19 environment impacting those smaller practices that are in your network?
The small medical practices, which I kind of acquaint, like I said, to a small business. And as an entrepreneur, I'm really in love with the whole concept of starting a business and being a small business. I'm very familiar with the hard work it takes, the sacrifices that it takes, and that's sort of a constant. Most medical practices during COVID-19 were impacted just like your local restaurant were, your local diner, your local, those kind of places. They were basically shut down. And so they're all trying to come out of that, and they're re-engaging in a lot of more telemedicine and protective gear, and patients are coming in, elective surgeries coming back. All of those things that almost like are survival mode reinforce the fact that they're probably not going to worry about compliance activities that are not being constantly every day enforced. And again, it takes us to the fact that they're not going to need us until they need us, and then it's too late. So my goal and our mission is to help those small businesses in a profession that I tremendously respect, deliver to them a compliance service that is mandatory, has high fines, and we can make available to them at no charge.
If you like the information that we presented here on this video, you can find us on social media at #Cyber Sentinel or on our website at www.ascgrp.com. Mark, how can people find you?
Well, thanks for asking. You should go to Venops.com. That's spelled V like Victor, ENOPS.com. And you'll see a spot that says register. And you can register for free, no strings attached. and it's pretty. You can just tell your compliance person or assistant or office manager to handle it, and we'll take care of you, doctor.
Awesome. Mark, thanks so much for being on the episode.
Thanks for asking.